Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to compare Google Photos, Samsung Gallery, and Apple Photos to show you how they stack against each other in editing your images. So without further ado, let's jump in. So here I have the Pixel 7 Pro for Google Photos, the S23 Ultra for Samsung Gallery, and the 14 Pro Max for Apple Photos. And here is how the scoring system will take place. Each phone will take a point for having a specific feature, but if this feature exists on all of them, I will compare it on all three, and the one that does it the best will take half a point extra, the second place will take quarter a point extra, and nothing for the third place. But if this feature exists on two phones only, the first place will take half a point extra, and nothing for the second place. Lastly, if the feature exists on multiple phones but they do it exactly the same, each one will take a point without anything extra. So let's start the comparison, and we have multiple categories to compare. The first one is cropping and rotating. Here's the first shot ready for editing, and all three will give you a very precise slider to rotate the image the way you want, in addition to the basic rotation buttons that you can find on all three. And if you want to revert back to original, you can do this with a tap of a button, but only Google Photos has the option to auto-level the image to perfectly align it, like in this case over here. And that's why it comes first with 1.5 points, and the other two come second. Next, the ability to change the aspect ratio of the image. All three gives you this feature, so 1 point for each, but let's see which one does it better. So if we're going to exclude free and original from all of them, Google Photos gives you 5 different options, while on Samsung Gallery and Apple Photos, you get 8 different options to choose from, which are exactly the same. For example, the full option is exactly the same as wallpaper, but it's named differently. And also both will give you the ability to change the image from portrait to landscape if you want, and that's why both will take extra half a point. The second feature is the ability to mirror the image, which is only possible on Samsung Gallery and Apple Photos, and both of them will take a point for this. The next feature to compare is tilting or swiveling the images. Both Samsung and Apple have the same exact feature. You get a horizontal and vertical slider, which will allow you to change the image as you see here on the screen, but in Google Photos it works totally different. Here you can drag those 4 dots anywhere you want and then tap and hold to check the result. And the best part about Google Photos implementation here is the ability to swivel or tilt in pretty much all directions, not only vertically or horizontally like the other two. But the only problem here is the lack of precision. So for example, if you need a simple vertical or horizontal swiveling, you have to make sure that those 2 dots are on the same line exactly, or else the image will be misaligned. While the other two have a slider which will make it much easier for you in this case. But so far, it's a draw between all of them because Google Photos gives you the more flexibility while the other two gives you more precision. But there is one more feature in Google Photos that I couldn't find on the other two, which is the auto mode, which will automatically put the selection for you based on what it sees in the image. And then you can straighten the image automatically using AI, and that gives it the slight edge. So 1.5 point to Google Photos versus only 1 point to the other two. The last thing to compare in this category is a feature called Snap to Shape, which is only available in Samsung Gallery, which will allow you to crop the image to match a specific shape and choose between these options, or you can do it manually if you want. You can draw something on the screen and it will crop the image to match your drawing. So 1 point only for Samsung Gallery. So in the cropping and rotating category, the win goes to Samsung Gallery, followed by Apple Photos, and Google Photos comes third. The second category we have is the filters, and here I'm not going to compare the looks because it's a personal preference, but I'm going to only compare the features. All three give you the option to apply a filter and also adjust the intensity of this filter using a slider, like in this case, so all of them will take a point for this. But when it comes to the count, there are major differences. On Apple Photos, you only get 9 filters to choose from, while on Samsung Gallery, you have 12 by default, but it has a unique feature that you can't find on the other two. The first one is the ability to download filters from the Galaxy Store, And secondly, you can create your own filter from any image you want. So for example, this image is green, and that's why it created a green filter for me. And I have the ability to create this filter and give it a name and reuse it later. And when it comes to Google Photos, you get 19 different filters. So the first spot goes to Samsung Gallery, followed by Google Photos for the higher count, and the third place for Apple Photos. The third category is enhancing the photos quality, and each app has its own tools to help you achieve this. So let's start with the blurry photos, and only Google Photos gives you the option to unblur the image. And let me apply the filter on this one and show you the before and after difference. So now the effect has been applied, and let me zoom all the way in and then tap and hold on the image. This is before and this is after, and only Google Photos can achieve this. So 1 point for Google Photos and nothing for the other two. The second thing to compare in this category is the automatic enhancements offered by each app to help you enhance the look of the photo. When it comes to Apple Photos, when you tap on Edit, you will immediately get an option called Auto over here. When you tap on, it will automatically adjust everything to make your photo looks better. In Samsung Gallery, it works exactly the same. Just tap the Edit button and then the magic stick at the bottom left corner. Give it a few moments and wait for the enhancement. When it comes to Google Photos, it's exactly the same. You can tap on the Edit button and then choose the default Enhance option, which will do exactly the same thing as the other two phones. But you might see some other options here that you can choose from, but these are not related to the default Enhance option. These are under a different tool called the Sky, which is something I'm going to talk about later in this video. But for now, I'm going to give only 1 point for all of them. Lastly, there is one more feature that's only available in Samsung Gallery called Remaster Picture. This feature is meant for enhancing your old and blurry photos to make them look better. And here is the final result. Let me zoom all the way in and show you here how it looks. This is the after and this is before. But I found myself getting better results from Google Photos when I apply two things together. So for example, when I tap on Edit, and then choose the default Enhance option, give it its time to enhance the shot, and then I'm gonna also apply the unblur effect together. And when I zoom all the way in, I'm getting much better results here when it comes to the quality of the image itself. A lot of Samsung users use this feature as an alternative for the photo unblur in Google Photos, and if that's the case, that means that Samsung Gallery should get a point for having the feature, but I should also add extra half a point to Google Photos for the better quality. So I think that's the option I will go with, while on Apple side it doesn't have either this or that. So in the enhanced quality category, Google Photos comes first, followed by Samsung Gallery, and Apple Photos comes third. Category number 4 is removing photo bummers, and only Samsung Gallery and Google Photos can achieve this, so Apple Photos is out of the competition. But let's see which one of them can do it better. So here's the first shot in this comparison, and I'm gonna activate Magic Eraser in Google Photos and Object Eraser in Samsung Gallery. Right off the bat, Google Photos is much easier to use because it automatically suggests the items you should remove from the shot, and you can take the action with a tap of a button, while on Samsung side you have to tap on each item individually and at the end tap on Erase to remove everything. So it takes extra effort and time to achieve this, and sometimes it doesn't pick the item perfectly well like Google Photos does, and you will see some remaining things over here that will take you extra time to remove everything from the shot. When it comes to the quality, both of them deliver pretty much the same results, but in the most challenging situations, Google Photos has the slight edge. So let me show you this in one of the photos I have. So I removed pretty much everything from both photos to save time, but I only kept this guy in the background, which is very close to me, and it's also highlighted here in Samsung Gallery. So let me also highlight it in Google Photos like this. And he's gone. Let's tap on Erase on Samsung Gallery, and you'll see a big difference here in how each app handled the situation. In Google Photos side, you will notice here that it's much better in cropping the subject, and it used something from the background to achieve this, while Samsung Gallery used my arm to cover the other person or the person I removed from the shot, which looks very ugly and it doesn't look great by any means. So that's why I'm saying the quality is better in Google Photos when it comes to the most challenging situations. Another thing to compare is the ability to erase the shadows and reflections, which is only possible in Samsung Gallery. So when I tap on erase shadows, you will notice here that the shadows in these areas have been removed and this one became lighter, but it's not removed completely. So let me try to remove this shadow manually by doing a quick drawing around the object and do it one more time to remove any extras like this. And here's the final result after using the erase shadows feature. And let's do the same exact thing here on Google Photos and see the difference. So here's the end result. You will see, I think Google Photos has a slightly better quality, but overall you can achieve the same thing from both of them, but maybe it's slightly easier on Samsung side because it gives you the option to automatically do this. But I think the quality goes to Google Photos. One more thing Google Photos does better is the ability to camouflage certain parts of the image. If they are too colorful, you can simply draw a circle around it and it will mute the colors as shown here, which is something not possible on Samsung Gallery. So overall, I will give 1.5 points to Google Photos for removing objects versus only 1 point for Samsung Gallery. Category number 5 is cropping objects from the photos, and only Apple Photos and Samsung Gallery have this feature. So Google Photos is out of the competition, and now let's see which one of them does it better. So here's the first shot, and I think it's very challenging. So I'm gonna tap and hold on the object and then tap on share, save image, and I will do the same thing here in Samsung Gallery and compare the results. So here is the final result, and you will notice here that Samsung Gallery did a much better job in handling the edges when compared to Apple Photos. But let's try one more shot to confirm if that's the case as well. Here's one more shot which is even more challenging to try, and I will do the same really quick. Share. And let's take a look at the final results. So here's the final result, and for the second time Samsung Gallery did much better in handling the edges, and you will see it more prominent in this area while it looks like a mess in Apple Photos. So 1.5 points for Samsung Gallery versus only 1 point for Apple Photos. Category number 6 is the manual editing controls, and here all of them will give you the basic things like the brightness, the contrast, the saturation, the temperature, and so on. But when you compare the count, you will find 16 different tools in Google Photos versus 11 in Samsung Gallery and 15 in Apple Photos. So the win goes to Google Photos, followed by Apple Photos, and then Samsung Gallery comes third. Category number 7 is editing portraits, and if you took a portrait shot using the camera, all of them will give you the option to adjust the blur effect after the fact. So let's see the differences between all three. Starting with the basic controls, all of them will give you a slider to adjust the blur effect intensity, which is nice. But Google Photos has the edge in two things. First, you can also adjust the depth if you want, which is how far is the subject from the background. And secondly, you can choose which part of the image to focus on. So in this case, I'm focusing on the background while keeping myself blurry, and I can do the other way around. So that means if you have multiple subjects in the same shot, you can choose which one to focus on. So in this area, 1.5 points for Google Photos versus only 1 point for the other two. But only Samsung Gallery and the Apple Photos have different effects to choose from when it comes to portraits. So let's compare which one of them is better. In Apple Photos, you get 5 different effects, which are Studio Light, Contour Light, Stage Light Mono, and finally High Key Light Mono. While in Samsung Gallery, you get Studio, and then High Key Mono, Low Key Mono, Backdrop, Color Point, Big Circle, and then you have a Spin, and finally Zoom. You will notice here that 3 of them are exactly the same on both. The first one is High Key, the Low Key Mono, and the Studio Light. But Contour Light and Stage Light in Apple Photos do not exist in Samsung Gallery. And in contrast, you will see here also a lot of options that don't exist in Apple Photos, like Backdrop, Color Point, Big Circle, Spin, and Zoom. So it depends on your personal taste which one of these you like more, but when it comes to the count, the edge goes to the Samsung for having more options, so it takes 1.5 point versus only 1 point for Apple Photos. There is also one more feature that you can only find in Samsung Gallery and Google Photos, which is the ability to add a light source to the shot and place this light source anywhere and then increase the light intensity to better light your subject. You can do the same thing also in Samsung Gallery, but you have to choose one of the different lights over here, like Studio, High Key, and so on. As far as you have this button, you can tap on it and then place the light source wherever you want and then increase the light intensity, which is missing from Apple Photos. So I will give 1.5 points to Google Photos because you can use this feature on any shot regardless if it's portrait or not, while in Samsung Gallery you can only use it if it's a portrait with a specific light effect. So only 1 point for Samsung Gallery. So that's it when it comes to editing the portraits you took with your phone's camera. But what if you took a normal shot like this one and you want to convert into a portrait? Only Samsung Gallery and Google Photos can allow you to do this, so let's see how it works. In Google Photos, you can tap on Portrait Blur, and here you can tap the ellipses and then add Portrait Effect. And then you can adjust the blur effect intensity, and I couldn't spot any major difference between the two, so 1 point for each. In editing portraits, the win goes to Samsung Gallery, followed by Google Photos, and Apple Photos comes third. Category number 8 is the extras, and here I'm going to talk about the features that are not related to any category. The first one is a feature in Google Photos only called Sky. This feature will allow you to adjust the sky look without the need to apply any filter to the shot, and you have multiple options to choose from, so 1 point only for Google Photos. The second feature to compare is called Color Focus, and Samsung Gallery has a similar feature called Spot Color, while Apple Photos doesn't have any of these, so let me show you how it works on both. In Google Photos, you get a slider to adjust the effect intensity, and this feature is meant for keeping the subject in color while removing the colors from the background. And you can see here when you put it on the maximum number, only the subject has colors, but anything else is in black and white. But you can also make it somewhere in between by muting the colors here in the background instead of making it completely black and white. And this is the end result you get from Google Photos. In Samsung Gallery, it does exactly the same thing, but in a different way. It says here, tap anything you want to show in color. So I'm gonna try to keep myself in color. But as you see here, when I do this, most of the background is still in color. It gives you here the option to brush things or to erase things, to erase the colors that it didn't do accurately, which will take you much more time to achieve the same result as Google Photos. So I don't think it's on the same level, so I will give 1.5 points to Google Photos versus only 1 point to Samsung Gallery. Google Photos also has a feature that the other two don't have, which is the cinematic photos. So you can tap on Create and then Cinematic Photo, give it some time, and it will create a very nice 3D effect for the image. So let's wait for it. And here's what you get. You will see that the subject is completely separate from the background, and it gives you this nice zoom effect. And this feature doesn't exist on the other two, so 1 point only for Google Photos. Next, creating collages. And only Google Photos and Samsung Gallery have the feature built in, while on the iPhone you have to use the Shortcuts app, which is a totally different one, which I'm not going to include in this comparison. So I'm going to only use the Gallery apps as I mentioned in the beginning of the video. So the iPhone is out of competition here, and let's see the difference between Google Photos and Samsung Gallery. So here I selected 4 photos on both, and I'm gonna tap on the plus sign in Google Photos and then collage, and do the same thing here on Samsung Gallery to see the difference. Both can allow you to drag the images to reorder like this, and you can also use the pinch to zoom gesture. You can also tap on an individual image to edit or replace, and both of them will give you the same functionality, but Samsung Gallery has more flexibility in allowing you to delete any image you don't want after adding it, and also add more if you want. When it comes to the number of layouts, Samsung Gallery has the edge because you have much more to choose from, while on Google Photos it gives you few of them based on how many photos you selected. Samsung Gallery also has 2 more advantages, which are the ability to choose a different aspect ratio, and in this case I have 3, plus you can adjust the curvature of the frames or the padding the way you want, plus you have here the ability to change the color of the background. But Google Photos has a huge advantage over Samsung Gallery, which is the tremendous number of creative styles you can choose from, which is something you cannot replicate in Samsung Gallery. So I'm gonna call it a draw between the two because Samsung Gallery has much more options while Google Photos is very unique and each will take 1 point. The next feature we're gonna compare is creating GIFs, and here I'm selecting 4 photos on both, and let's tap on create animation in Google Photos and here GIF in Samsung Gallery. You will notice here that Google Photos didn't give me the option to edit the GIF, but it slapped all the images together and made it that way, which I don't like by any means, while in Samsung Gallery you can do much more. First, you can add more images, you can delete whatever you want, or you can duplicate any one, plus you can drag them over to reorder the images in any way. The second tab will allow you to crop, change the orientation or the aspect ratio for any of the images. The third tab is for adjusting the speed. You can change the speed, you can choose the direction of the playback, or you can make it a loop. Lastly, you can draw like this, add stickers, and choose from the emojis or some shapes. Plus you can add some text as well. So 1.5 point for Samsung Gallery versus only 1 point for Google Photos. Now let me show you some features that you can only find in Samsung Gallery, and the first one is called Style, and here you can choose between some creative styles like watercolor, blue ink, and so on. They look very artistic, and here you can also adjust the intensity using the slider and get something like this, which is a nice touch. So 1 point only for Samsung Gallery. The second one is called Color Mix, and here you can adjust each color separately. So for example, you can adjust the hue of the red color individually, and then the saturation, the luminance, and you can do this for all the colors in the shot as you see here, which is not also available on the other 2 phones. The third one is called Face Effects, and here you will get a set of features to adjust your face, like for example the skin smoothness. You can adjust the tone like this. You can also change your jawline and make your face thinner than what it actually is. And then you have eyes, you can make your eyes bigger. You have a spot fixer, but I didn't find a use case for this feature. You can highlight things to fix it, and I'm not sure what it does exactly. Then you have background blur, and it only blurs the top half of the shot, not everything. And finally, you have the red eye fix. So if there is any red eye in the shot, you can tap on the circle and it will try to remove it. So 1 more point for Samsung Gallery. In the extras category, Samsung Gallery comes first, followed by Google Photos, and the Apple Photos didn't come. So now I'm done with all the categories, so let's sum up the results. Google Photos came first in 3 categories, second in another 3, third in 1 category, and it missed the cropping objects. For Samsung Photos, it came first in 5 categories, second in 2, and third in 1 category, and it didn't miss any of them. Lastly, Apple Photos never came first. It was the second in 3 categories, the third in another 3, and it missed 2 categories. So overall, the win goes to Samsung Gallery, followed by Google Photos, and Apple Photos took the 3rd spot. So that's pretty much it for today. That was my photo editing battle between Google Photos, Samsung Gallery, and Apple Photos. Please let me know in the comments what do you think. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.